Hello people, and welcome to BTG. This is your host, Mr. Shaker, familiar with such songs as Aftercall and You Shoulda Took the. And to start off my video first, I just wanted to state that on one of my videos where I was inquiring about when I stated which place or country that W.E.B. Du Bois died in, it was actually in Ghana. That was the country. I believe I stated it was Nigeria before. However, as in the other video, I was stating that I wanted to correct that information. And also, I was unable to locate the links for Joe Rogan's My Study mention. I did that before, however, I was unable to locate it on YouTube. I mean, it used to be up somewhere. It used to just be readily available. However, it's not there. So, anyways, the topic that I want to speak about now is how come when people mention the predator, I know that when people think of predators, they always think that the predator is superior than the prey. Even in one documentary I was watching where they were stating what happens if we were to locate another Earth-like planet and life was different on that planet. One scientist stated if we wanted to adapt to this planet, the people that, or if you wanted to communicate with intelligent life, you want to speak to the predator because the predator is obviously more intelligent than the prey. However, I believe that that's just not true. Because when you think about it, even though you can say the predator is smart, however, if the prey didn't give any good challenge, then the predator wouldn't be as intelligent. It would just be way too easy for them. Wait, what are they doing here? Yeah, that's odd. It's yeah, that's odd why they were showing up. They shouldn't have showed up. It's not even that time yet. They're all early to work. I mean, right now I'm just trying to build a pillar because the pillar I built on the other side by my safe house is actually not that tall, or it would have to be a little too tall in order for me to know where I'm going. So my idea is now just to put a pillar on each side just in case just so I can move in other places. Well, yeah, I guess it is getting kind of late. But still, they're still too early. But anyways, as I was stating, the notion that the predator was more superior just because I guess we can somehow identify with them, given that given though we have two eyes in front of us and not on the sides, which is supposed to be ideal for predators rather than preys, which preys would have eyes on the sides of their heads rather than in front, so that they can protect themselves, and of course the predator having eyes at front, or both their eyes at front, in order for them to have an easier time to pursue their prey. However, I was thinking about some of the creative methods I've seen prey having to escape predators, such as one thing that I saw, I believe, was this one video on what was it called? I think it was called Planet Earth. I think Snoop Dogg narrated it, or one of those episodes when it showed an iguana-like creature, and then it showed how the snakes were trying to hunt it. And the snakes, they were creative. They had lots of numbers, and they were coming at the iguana quite aggressively. However, the prey had to be equally as creative and also dexterous within their movements in order for them to escape the snakes. And also they were climbing up rocks and hills, which was actually a rough terrain that a snake can just slither across, while they have feet that they have to keep balanced or else they'll tumble and fall and wind up in the snake pit. And I'm just thinking that those movements by the prey was actually a bit more superior than that of the snakes. And also the fact that it was able to escape does show that its movements were indeed superior. I'll probably post a link to that video as well, presuming that that wasn't deleted or is no longer easier to search for, because it should be. As I was stating, I never understood why the scientists were to think of that. Now, even if you look in humans, if you consider the theory of evolution, humans at some point were, or the early humans were prey. And even if you don't, when you want to look at the theory of evolution, just think about humans, how they would compare to saber-tooth tigers and other animals that were, I guess we would consider prehistoric. Those animals were superior to humans, given the notion that they had all the weapons that they needed were already on their bodies. They had sharp claws, sharp teeth. People didn't really have any of that. Maybe a great deal of biting power, I would say, since the jaw muscles were stronger back then for humans. It wasn't going to compare to that of a saber-toothed tiger. However, until people developed tools which gave them a superior advantage, almost making them OP. If you ever seen that one video for Tier Zoo, I'll probably post a link to that video as well. Because in that video, he was discussing how people are indeed overpowered. Because, I mean, if you look at what people have done, if you really wanted to make any animal, the fact that we have an endangered list for other species shows you exactly how superior people are. The fact that you actually had to stop hunting them because they would no longer exist shows that superiority. However, being superior isn't everything, given that if you were to hunt too many of them, then you would offset the ecosystem, and I'm not sure how humans would actually be able to manage the environment, or even our own environment, if all we had were just domestic animals for farming and just regular agriculture. If we just kept enough trees around for, I don't know, I guess to try to pull oxygen out of the air, even though there's a mechanical tree out right now which actually can, or actually I think they were talking about a concept which actually can remove, I think 4 times as much as oxygen. It's more oxygen than a tree can remove, and it creates oxygen from that. The only thing is the filters have to be cleaned in order for it to operate properly, since it's not biological, it's a machine. So it has to be maintained by us, so to speak. However, the thing is, if we were just to have a large farm and the only real nature we had was just for our pets, I'm not sure if that would even be a sustainable environment, or how many trees would you require, or even if you were to remove all the trees and just wind up replacing them with those mechanical trees that pretty much remove more carbon, or actually is more efficient at removing carbon dioxide than regular trees. I'm not sure how sustainable that would actually be. I know the upkeep would definitely be quite extensive. It's almost similar to if people were to have to collect pollen in order to create honey, rather than having the bees, or if people just try to just, I guess if you hired pollinators just to go around and try to collect pollen and then pollinate flowers, then yeah, I guess we could wind up doing. Honestly, that's I'm trying to think. I remember I watched a Black Mirror episode on that where they say that the bee population was entirely low. So, since the bee population was lower, they actually had to create synthetic bees. And they were, well, actually not synthetic bees, but robotic bees. And if you did not create a robotic bees to replace their job, then I just can't imagine if you actually hired people in the future just to go around and start swapping pollen and just go around to swapping pollen and then just transferring pollen to other plants like a bee would do. Just in regards to how tedious that is, I don't know if you who you would hire to do that, and just paying someone minimum wage for that, and for them to work 8 hours. I mean, even I'm not sure how much that would actually be, or if that would even be enough to sustain the environment. But anyways, I was stating the notion that the predators are superior isn't really the case. I mean, if you look at people, for example, started off as a prey, became a predator, and still was a prey in some instances. Like, for example, if us versus a wolf, or even if you look at a deer versus a wolf, if it's multiple wolves, then yes, the deer, or the elk, let's say the elk, since they're a little larger. The elk versus a pack of wolves, depending on how many wolves there are, the elk will lose. However, one wolf versus the elk, the wolf actually would not have much of a chance, just due to how massive the elk actually is and how strong their horns actually are, or actually their antlers. So, just thinking in that regard, the prey in this case, which would be the elk, would actually be a challenge for the wolf, given its size and, well, it's really, I guess, it is size and its antlers. Now, if you think of people, how we actually separate ourselves, actually remove ourselves from the food chain, is actually quite impressive, because we're at the point where we actually we're not even part of the food chain. The only people that are actually part of the food chain, that I think still are the Sand people, or also known as the Bushman tribe in South Africa. Those people actually still, even though a few of them, or at least one individual I know, or maybe actually it might have been quite a few of them, actually during a war in South Africa, they actually used one of the Bushmen, or one of those individuals, as a tracker in order to locate some of the rebel groups. And they were quite good at their job. But after the war was over, they returned back to their way of life and proceeded to maintain balance with their environment and hunt on their own regard. Why should they, quote unquote, civilize, or in this regard, modernize, if they already have everything they need? They have plants that can treat their wounds. If they want food, they can go ahead and hunt it. They literally, it's as though they, even though they are, humans, it's just funny how they are actually in tune with their environment. Like, it's like they're part of the wildlife, so to speak. Because I remember I was watching one thing where they had water hidden in different spots, so in case they got thirsty, they wouldn't have to run back to the source of water, or the main source of water. They decided that they would hide they would hide some, I guess you call them safe zones, or I guess you could say safe zones, safe spots where they could just hide their water, or their cache, so to speak, in which they could then rehydrate. Now, I remember this is when they were hunting, I believe it was a gazelle, and since they were kind of skinny and small. I think they are about 5 feet, or maybe even under 5 feet, and they have to probably be 120 pounds, or could be potentially even less than that. They were, they actually could only bring back some of the gazelle that they've hunted, and they stated that they had to be careful of hyenas just in case they came back to take their, to pretty much take their kill, so to speak, for the lack of better words. So they left some of the gazelle behind, and I guess they were going to come back later. However, it's just amazing how those individuals were actually in balance with their environment, and that they were actually competing with the hyenas themselves just for the gazelle. When you would think about people, if a hunter in this time, or if you just look at it in the US, if a hunter hunts a deer and a wolf came along, then the hunter could also bring the wolf along as well. Because that's what they're hunting. However, I said they could bring that along as well, because at the end of the day, the wolf is no competition for that hunter. The hunter would have a high-powered rifle, and if they could take out a deer with it, then what's it going to do to a wolf? Since the wolf is a lot smaller, they're not holding up well either. So just to think about those methods that you can learn, like you can learn from both the predator and the prey. Because when you think about it, if you view the hunting techniques of the predator and you view the, oh dear, there's too many of them out here. I think, why are they popping up now? Jeez. But anyways, as I was stating, jeez, I lost my train of thought. Dang zombies. Anyways, yeah, as I was stating, if you use the tactics of a predator to be able to hunt, and to use the hiding tactics of the prey, then you can I guess, become the ultimate predator. And I think this might be a good spot to build it. But and the thing is that I was stating is just back on the notion from the, what do you call it? The prey's tactics and how we can benefit from all of them. Just saying, if there was a lazy predator, like I think in, what is it? Not I think it might be in Madagascar, or it's another place that's off the coast of that, where they stated that there are wingless birds, and because a mongoose was imported, it's now an invasive species. And because it's used to hunting birds that fly, the wingless birds didn't have any predators. Mongooses then, it might be a mongoose or it could be a weasel. I forget what it actually is. But they stated that is just wiping out that population because there's no challenge for it. It's like Andre the Giant versing it's like Andre the Giant versus a pygmy. It's just not going to work out. Right now I'm just trying to build an outpost just so I believe I might have discussed this in a previous video, or maybe not, but I'm trying to build an outpost so I could venture out further. Because you need an outpost just in case you lose track of time or you can't get back to the place. And because I can't get back to my safe house. Besides, there's no cars in this game, so this is the best option. Unless I'm just running around like Daryl in The Walking Dead, just hunting whatever, just taking out whatever outside. But as I was stating, there have been some effects of global warming in which some of the preys actually had to adapt to the humans' activities. Like there was this lightly colored, or this white butterfly or white moth, which it was able to blend into its background and avoid predators while the darker ones were getting eaten. However, I'm not sure what was eating them, but something was. However, once there was a coal mine implemented in this area, the darker butterfly or the darker moths were able to survive, while the lighter ones were more viewable and therefore weren't able to survive. Now I was thinking, if we actually did wind up losing a great deal of our predators and even prey, just a great deal of wildlife due to our activities or even global warming, we then would have to replace it. I mean, I'm just thinking, why is it that people can play God but only can be the devil? It just doesn't make much sense to me. So I was thinking, you should be able to replace those. The only issue is that if we were to only replace our own wildlife and say create a whole new life form, the only issue is due to that mindset that a predator is superior than a prey. I think that we might wind up setting an offset and wind up having more predators, or just engineering all predators. If we were to genetic engineer anything, we would have a surplus of predators and not enough prey, and then the predators themselves would have to be would pretty much have a predator and prey relationship. It's almost as though if you had a lion versus a pack of wolves, and no gazelles or zebras, just lions versus wolves. Who wins in that regard? And it almost reminds you of something off of Deus Ex, the first Deus Ex that is, where they were engineering those crocodile-looking lizard creatures that could also spit out radiation. Now I was thinking, if you were to introduce something like that into the environment, who knows what would happen? I know some people were thinking about even the ethics of the situation, though the ethics itself used to be really based on religious ideas. And I mean, given now, thinking some people move more secular, I'm not really sure how ethics could potentially hold up exactly. I mean, hopefully they do, or they're based on something else. Like, for example, what would that do with the remaining population? Oh dear. Alright. I think I might have. Alright. I might have made a mistake. It's too open. Oh dear. Alright, maybe if I just hold out, I'll be fine. What the heck? Alright, how do I build? Oh dear. No, 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 jeez, nope. Hey, maybe it didn't end.